Welcome, everybody, and we're back to Anime Talks, and it has been a while since our last entry. I want to say we were checking out Classroom of the Elite, and yet again, we have yet another school thriller that is pretty nice, pretty enjoyable, and let's let class begin. So, for starters, this is Tomodachi Game, and I've finally just been able to close this out. I started watching it like a little bit last week, as of time of this recording, and I was able to finish it off too. And I'd have to say, it is one of the peak thriller animes. It changes drastically throughout it, and you start to see like the change and the escalation of how the relationships between everybody goes in the show. And I'd have to say is by far one of the must watch animes that I've seen in a while. And I've been trying to keep up with a few animes here and there, but I'm not gonna like travel too far away from the topic. But this is Tomodachi Game. So to compare this and to put this with something else, I'd have to say is more or less follows the same thriller and school aspect along the lines of A Classroom of the Elite, as in just like the adolescent era or the adolescent times of the characters that are in the show, and it's on a whole different level. And we're met with a handful of characters. The cast isn't big. It is sitting at only one season. Season 2 has not been confirmed. It hasn't been renewed yet. So forgive me if this, at the time of this recording and the time of you listening to this, there's more information that is on this. But it is an awesome show. And we're going to dive straight into you could say the synopsis, the premise, and we'll kind of like go through that. And we're started off with you can say, you call him the anti-hero, Yuichi Katagiri. He has a very troubled childhood that we are like kind of in between finding out things about, and it rolls into a lot of other things that is later broken down in later episodes. And before we cover that, there's something odd that's going on within his classroom. There's a trip that they plan on taking, him and 4 other of his friends. They're supposed to go on this trip, and they're supposed to save up money, but the classroom's funds were stolen right before they mysteriously woke up inside the Tomodachi Game. And it's pretty much the way they give it is the friendship between the 5 will be put to the test against the promise of being wealthy. And it's mainly just it's a bunch of dirty things going on. And there's a lot of things we find out. You can almost say this is a season 1 review, but we're just going to leave it as a Tomodachi Game review for now. And then we'll be able to kind of touch on a lot of things that are coming up with it, because I have my own speculations as to what's going to happen later. And I have not read the manga on this, but I have seen the animation, and this review is based solely on the animation alone and not the manga. And I'd have to say it is it's just so good. I mean, it leaves you wanting more. The last episode leaves you like hungry for more, waiting for renewal, waiting for more information. But back to Yuichi Katagiri. He's a normal high school kid. He comes from a poor background, and he was called to participate in the Tomodachi Game. And it is a crazy thing that Yuichi has that is going on within the show. You see him as this calm, collective kid within like the first 2 or 3 episodes. I might be going over probably the first 2 episodes, and then once him and his friends get inside, once him and his friends get inside the Tomodachi game, things start to take a different dip, as he's not the average kid that you thought he was. He is actually a very, very, very deceptive, manipulative, very merciless individual. He is he gives no slack to anybody in the show, and actually puts a lot of people to the test against almost anything. He's like the perfect blackmailing type of individual. He's a very ruthless individual. He's very good. I'd have to say he brings out the psychological factor in this show because of the steps that it take and the exposition drops of everything we see. And as we cover more of the other characters, we're going to put into play how Yuichi pans out against the rest of the cast, because his interaction with them is just so good, and he's able to really kind of put everybody into like a tier list of where they stand within the game. We have a couple things about him that is exposed later on through the show, and like I'd have to say around game number 2 for the Tomodachi game with him and his friends, we do find out that Yuichi is indeed a murderer. He killed 3 people. 2 of them kind of find out they happen to be his adopted parents. So he joins the Tomodachi game to destroy the administration. And what's very crazy is there is a very special thing that I will leave to y'all to go look into this and watch it to find out the later revelation on the Tomodachi game altogether. Is very good. You just can't pass it up. But let's move on to other characters and cover their portions in the show. And we're going to refer this group as Group C because this is Yuichi's group, him and his other 4 friends. So with that being said, we'll move over to Shiho Sawaragi, one of Yuichi's friends. She has a very interesting crush on Yuichi, and so she lost. It's crazy. She lost the class's funds, and she was the reason why they're in the Tomodachi game to begin with. For the most part, everybody does like her. She is the daughter of the policeman that comes later on in the show. You'll see that the Officer Sawawagi is very, very, very much so a leading factor that's kind of like pointed to where the Shiho's family has a lot to do with a couple of the murders that came about. So it's one of those things that you just got to pay attention to. And Shiho's father is on the scene of I can't even think of it. Shiho's dad is on the scene when Shibei's dad was murdered, and also was there when Tenji's dad was murdered. It is very interesting on how he has been a frequent, I guess you could say, common denominator in both of the deaths that occurred. So, a lot of things that are going on within the show. You have during game 2, you start to really learn what's going on. It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on. There's a lot of things that are not allowed to be said only because I can't reveal too much because there's a lot that is within the manga insertion, and I don't want to reveal too much because season 2 has not dropped yet, and I would hate to like drop too much, and there's like a lot of misconception when you're going back and watching the actual show. So Shiho, she ends up being she ends up having a lot of weird things going on when her and Kokorogi and Shibe are ejected out the game for a temporary break because you have Yuichi and another one of their friends. They progressed on to game 3. When they progress on to game 3, you have the likes of Shiho, Shibe, and Kokorogi. They were able to take that break and return back to school, and a lot of other things like weirdly happened during that time. We actually had the disappearance of Shiho, where you couldn't find Shiho. You were only able to see Kokorogi and Shibe. So there's just a lot of things that are going on that I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that's going on. The last that we know, as far as the television series, we are missing Shiho towards the last couple episodes, and is normally it's kind of subjected to be due to the bullying that happened once she returned, and kind of like the fingers are pointed at she potentially is the thief of the money. So that's all that's going on. So as that goes on, we kind of learn a lot about Shiho and her dad's involvement with a lot of things. As a matter of fact, it's more like her dad's suspicion. So we'll leave that at that and move on to our next character, and they'll kind of give like more insight. And as we cover more things, I'll be giving interactions between the two. And we have Tenji Mikasa. So Tenji, when I mean this guy has a crazy track record when it comes down to the Tomodachi game. It takes a crazy dip. In game 1, you have Yuichi putting out different types of plots and stuff for the traitor to get caught. And then in game 2, he places another. He has another like lineup of stuff to be able to tackle on the traitor in game 2. We end up learning that it was like game number 3, we did find out that Tenji Mikasa, this is his second Tomodachi game. So there's like a lot of things that we're trying to find out of. How'd he get in the first one? What is going on with the first one? And how is he able to be in a second one? And all just a lot of things are like, the wheels are turning when it comes down to this. And it's just nuts on what we're going through as far as the viewers trying to understand what's going on in such an elaborate game based on betraying your friends and get money, or staying true to your friends in exchange of collecting debt. And you kind of see that Tenji has a very calm, collective state. He's very, very kind-hearted, and we see a lot of things different change up. He ends up having this weird hate for Shiho when really it was because of his father's death and seeing her dad around the body of his father when that happened. It's crazy. A lot of things happen within that, and he ends up in game 2. He ends up trying to break the friendship of the group, but ends up being thwarted by Yuichi and he exposes him. And then game 3 ends up starting. Before game 3 starts, you see Tenji take a leap of faith by professing his quote unquote love for Yuichi, which he used that as a way to continue on forward with the games. But he is the only person, as far as the show's concerned, that continues on and plays the rest of the games alongside Yuichi and did not have to take a break. Also, Tenji has a very, very interesting behavior. Is crazy. Tenji has a very interesting behavior that ends up showing a lot more often as we go further in the show, showing that he's very weak at first when it comes down to being able to get the trust back up with Yuichi, but he ends up getting the trust within that last game where he held out. And last game, as far as the show's concerned, being able to hold out and not press the little give up button and give up completely. He left all his trust in Yuichi, and Yuichi actually made it through and came in clutch for him. So that worked out just fine, and it was great. It's one of those things that you just got to watch. But Tenji Mikasa, definitely one of those top tier people, very worth watching. And we'll move over to Shibe Makoto. He's interesting. This man here, or I say this guy here does and has a lot of money. He comes from a very, very, very highly politically moved family, and he also has an interesting crush on Shiho. But of course, he follows with Shiho and Kokorogi's their little escort outside the game because they were able to give him a break because they didn't finish round 2 technically. They are all bullied, and then it causes Shiho to disappear. But with this guy here, it's wild. It's wild. There's just so much stuff going on with this because he's trying to find out later on. As a matter of fact, not only just later on, but in the last episode, before we close out of the anime, and of course waiting on a good season 2, we end up seeing that his father is murdered, and he is trying to find out what's going on with that. But nonetheless, there's more to it. He's actually taken into custody, and because he is then, what we can speculate, he is then blamed and accused for murdering his dad and potentially some other problems that we have to wait for season 2, or just you catch up with the manga. The manga says so much, and I can't say all that on this, only because this is only an anime review. I cannot give manga reviews on this, only because I would like for each person that takes the time to go watch this to be able to watch and not miss anything or hear anything that's not part of it. And then you end up having to go read the manga and then find out other portions. He is very kind-hearted, another good soul, and he doesn't actually have anything that's really wrong with him. He's like actually the dull crayon out the group, where he's just kind of like, I'd hate to say dim-witted, but he's just not really the brightest tool in the shed. And he is very, very nice, very concerned, very sincere. And he actually is afraid of Yuichi when he finds out that he's a murderer. And he was the one that was actually set up during the second game the Badmouth game. And it was very, very interesting on how he played his role so well to where you just didn't know what was going to come out of it. And he did well. He did well. You could just see how genuine he was about all of it. So it worked out great. I enjoyed him. I enjoy it. Afterward, we don't know what ends up happening for the rest of the show yet, because once again, we're waiting on a renewal and another season. But as far as Shibei is concerned, outside the group, he is kind of like a background character with a lot of good backstory, and he's kind of just here. He's kind of just here. So now, with that being said, we just have to see more. We have to see what's going on and to finally put the rest of the puzzle together. But Shibei actually has the worst turnout post last episode, according to the animation. And finally, we're going to move over to Yutori Kokorogi. So Kokorogi is very, very, very interesting. She is super, super sweet, soft-spoken, and almost anything you would really want. And like your typical anime female. She was bullied heavily when she was she quote unquote worked as an escort or an exotic entertainer, but she confirmed that she never really did the deed. So like that kind of it was interesting. It was interesting. And on top of that, there's a lot of dark secrets that sits within Kokorogi's past that is we don't end up finding this out. It takes reading the anime to find out. Reading the manga to find out. But she has a very dark past that you can only find out by reading. So go read that manga. Watch the anime. Be mad that not all of it's out yet, and you will not regret it. I don't have much to say on Kokorogi, but to cover a couple of her interactions. So game number one just happened. Really, game number one was really just the cunning, and we see the development of Yuichi. And then game number two, you start to see the real interactions everywhere. You start seeing Kokorogi is more like the battered, bullied little girl who is like kind of like you would never expect is her kind of thing. That's what she gives off. And what is really awesome is post this and reading manga, she has a far more sinister background that you will never put together. And that is our main cast there. We have a couple extras. We have the Tomodachi Game Administration, the observers. We have Maria, Tsukino, and Tamai. And we have all the Manabu variants. And we have Group K, which is the Tomodachi Game participants. They participated going against Group C for game 3, which worked out perfectly fine. It was awesome. That was like a survival of the fittest thing. I guess going over the games helped. Game number 1, it was kind of like a Ouija board kind of thing, where you ask certain questions and everybody's hand had to move it over to either yes or no, and you lose points. But the thing is, if one person moves it that way, or everybody has to answer one thing, it could all mean yes or no. It was very confusing. But the point is trusting everybody to answer the question collectively and for it to all apply. So that was that. Game number 2 is the bad mouth the game, and it was really, really, really good, and it changes up everything when it came down to that. I really, really enjoyed game number two. Game number two kind of let all the things that we learned about the show come out, all the exposition. Like we found out about Kokorogi's exotic extracurriculars. We find out who got everybody in the Tomodachi game as well. Slightly, even though there's some variations. Read the manga to find out. And in number 3, we do find out that Yuichi is a murderer in the anime during game number 2. And then after the Batmouth round, we do have game number 3, which is it was the hide and seek, and it's like hide seek and something else. I can't remember currently, but hide and seek, that game was pretty cool. I like the layout of it. They're in this forest, and really it's a battle of attrition. You're really kind of just outlasting and seeing. It's not really for the other team to really seek out the person that's hiding. Is mainly who could hide the longest without being found or without giving up. So there's that. It was very, very good. I enjoyed game number 3. And game number 4, we weren't really technically allowed to see that yet, even though we did see the likes of a fake Tomodachi game runner where they had this little underground thing where Kokorogi, I want to say, was kidnapped, and Yuichi went there, and it was just so much going on. He ended up getting stabbed in the hand, was playing rock, paper, scissors, and all that stuff. It was pretty interesting. There's a lot of stuff that happened. You got to go watch it. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. So we end up having a few other games that are in this, where we had the adult Tomodachi game, but we end up not having that portion pop up yet because we're still waiting on season 2, which is going to follow and finish out the rest of the first season of Tomodachi Game. I will also say this show is, again, top tier, very psychological, a heavy thriller, and is worth watching. And I can definitely say personally, if you spent any time watching anything that's going to make your mind jog and have you on the edge of your seat, this one's it. This one's it. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to love it. It's one of those you can't forget anything you've seen. As a matter of fact, I'm vividly catching. I just finished it a couple days ago, but I am vividly just remembering everything that has happened thus far, and the few of the things that I read. So it is worth. It's worth watching. It's worth watching. If you end up spending any time watching this show, definitely come back to this podcast and give this any kind of answer or any question that you would like to know or anything that I'm missing, and just send it in. I enjoy being able to come back and check out anything that is left for me to be able to bring more content or be able to answer any questions, and furthermore, be able to know what part of any of these animes that you've enjoyed or came across since you've been listening to Anime Talks. And that is really all that I have for everyone. I hope that your anime adventures are going well. I hope that you're enjoying anything that you're currently watching. And if you have any suggestions on what to watch next, definitely drop any of that, whether that be via Facebook, Instagram, X, Snapchat, my personal number if you have me there, YouTube. You have every way possible of getting with me to let me know what your ideas or anything that you would like for me to check out and to be able to do a review on, because normally everything just kind of comes up. I'm kind of just hanging out in the thriller section in Crunchyroll right now still. So until that changes, I really don't know where else I'm going to go with this. And there's no telling. We do have other options and opportunities coming up as far as Mind Over Matter. That sub-series is coming soon, where we're going to be comparing very, very intellectual minds of two different characters from two different shows and putting a versus challenge up, really, and getting other things as well, as far as like hand-on-hand combat with other characters and comparing them, going over stats and going over who would be victorious in whatever we seen fit. And everybody love those what if hypothetical situations. So please stay tuned. Thank y'all all for y'all support. And of course, class is dismissed.